Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us if you're going to join us live or if you will be watching the replay. This video will exist on this page as well as on the YouTube channel. So I want to introduce my friend Jackie, Jacqueline or Jackie Millspa. She has a Master of Education and is a licensed professional counselor with 33 years of experience in the behavioral health field. She is focused on helping individuals and families navigate life's changes and challenges from childhood through adult, ages 7 and up. She takes a collaborative approach to treatment, working in partnership with a client family on their journey to achieve the life they want. Jackie specializes in cognitive behavioral therapy. Oh my gosh, words are hard. Hi, Chuck. CBT, utilizing other approaches, techniques as needed to address such issues as depression, anxiety, anger management, addiction and substance use, stress, trauma, self doubt, grief, relationship repair and development, and self discovery and growth in general. I met Jackie on TikTok, which sounds kind of strange to some people, but TikTok isn't a scary place if you search out the right people. Some of my best friends and family are now from TikTok. I love it. So I'm going to bring Jackie on here. Hi, Jackie.
Hi.
Thank you so much for taking some time with us today. We are going to be talking about values and intentions, and I'm going to pretty much turn it over to her. I will interject, and we're just going to have a great conversation.
All right. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and hang out with you for a little while today.
I love it.
So you're right. We're going to talk about values and intentions. And so one of the reasons when you asked me to join that I wanted to focus on that is because this time of year, people are doing, goal setting. And so when doing goal setting, it is very important to understand the difference between values, intentions, and goals and how they're all connected to be, optimally effective. In the world of self-development, those terms oftentimes are kind of thrown around a lot in terms of values, goals, intentions, and oftentimes they're used interchangeably, but they're very different. And so I'm going to talk about the distinction and the difference, today. And understanding the differences and figuring out, how best to implement them effectively into your life can really go a long way in terms of how satisfied you are with the life you're living.
Love
So
it.
great. So what are values? I mean, values are pretty simple. There are things that are important to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
I say they're simple. We don't really give a lot of time and attention typically to what our values are. Values they don't get marked off like goals do, right? Instead, it's a commitment, to your daily moment by moment in terms of how you live. You're practicing, these, and it's not something that you accomplish. You never really reach a final destination. Values are typically identified with like single words like acceptance, health, family, love, connection, or brief phrases like meaningful work. Most people have up to 10 values that are very important to them. And then, typically what I recommend too is that you go through those and you prioritize and have about 5 core values. So the 10 are still your values, but the 5 are the most important to you and are the core that a lot of times you're going to build your intentions and your goals from. Intentions. So a well-crafted intention, of course, starts with your values, and it becomes a statement basically about how you want to show up in the world. It serves as guidelines of how you want to be, and how you want to show up, not necessarily what you want to do or accomplish. So that kind of shows the difference between an intention and a goal. So let's say that one of your core values is acceptance. So you might set an intention of, I choose to accept myself, as simple as that, right? This is something that you can be successful at right now once you make the determination, right? That is something that's an intention. You don't have to wait to accomplish something. You're going to choose self-acceptance, the choose word. And as long as you value acceptance, as long as that's one of your core values, your intention is going to inform how you treat yourself and the rest of your life. Now, what I will tell you is that values can change. So I always recommend to people that they reevaluate their core values at the various ages and stages of life. So your values as you go into your 50s, for instance, are probably going to look a bit different than they did in your 20s or your 30s. And so it is important to reevaluate. Some of your values are going to remain the same, but as you learn more and you're on that journey of self-discovery, you learn more about who you are and just how, what's important to you in your life, those can change. So goals, hopefully you've been able to determine so far, and I know I'm going fast, but goals are very different than values and intentions, right? Goals, you've got a concrete objective, to check off your list. And so, but the more connected, the more to your value driven intentions. So your intentions, of course, that were determined based on your core values, the more connected your goals are, basically the more satisfying and meaningful they're going to feel. So looking back at that example of self-acceptance, so goals might look like doing an online or an offline support group with other people who are practicing self-acceptance. Could be like reading 3 books on self-acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, if you've got a big party coming up, wearing a really fun vintage outfit instead of whatever your normal, attire would be. So those are some examples of how that might look. So basically, the goals are the things that you want to do, but they're in service of who you want to be. And so a lot of times, if they're not attached to values and intentions, which we're going to talk about, there can be some challenges, that arise. And so goals are things that you're going to check off your list, like I said. And so then hopefully, once you check those off your list and through your experience of achieving those, you may already be thinking of your next thing, in terms of living the life that you're wanting to live. So here's the challenge. And that is, and if you've watched like my self-discovery series on TikTok, I've talked about this. So sometimes we get into, particularly as we're growing up in an early life, we might discover that we've really been living the values of others and not really our own values. And, this can happen, through things that you packed or learned as a kid, or growing up, that you packed up. Maybe it was a value that was really promoted to you by parents, or a church family, or teachers, and you picked them up and carried them because you felt like you should, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yep.
you're living your life in that way. Other times it could be we're living values that are not our own because we feel like, so we're living the values of somebody that we're in a relationship with, which could be a romantic relationship, a friendship, family, anything, but that we're afraid that if we don't live their values and we choose to live our own unique values, that maybe they won't like us or they won't love us. And so we find ourselves really not being true, to
Mm-hmm.
who we are. And so another thing that I work with clients on a lot is if you're in a work environment, that does not feel right or you're miserable, oftentimes it's because the workplace culture or the workplace values are incongruent with your own personal values. And so it creates this inner conflict and is uncomfortable. And so people can adopt or think, well, I can just fit this mold. But sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's so contradictory to a really, uh, cherished core value, that it's problematic, and you kind of, to give you a sense, of if you might be, living the values of others and not your own, you might feel like you're merely surviving, that you're just kind
Mhm.
of going through the motions, checking off goals on a list, but never really ending up where you want to go. Now, you may not, if you've not done any values work, you may not really know where you want to go. Like on a weight loss journey, oftentimes we might pick up things that are valued and goals that are maybe things that maybe just a goal list that is given to us by our surgeon, our weight loss clinic, or that we hear from other people. And we might just kind of take off with that. And then, but it may not feel right. And we may feel like we're failing, but it could just be that it is not congruent with who we are. It's not a match,
Mhm.
you know? Um, so it's really important. Job match is important. Relationship matches are important, and we're not going to be able to achieve the life that we want, if we're not even aware of what our core values are, if we're living the core values of others. So it is really important. So a lot of people will do goal setting, right? Not doing the deeper work. And it may, sometimes I believe that it is the reason too why maybe goals aren't accomplished, because maybe it truly was not what was important to them. They thought they should do it, because of whatever, but it may not be congruent with who they are.
I love that because I see a lot of it in like the weight loss community. They go with what their surgeon says or what their friends on TikTok say. I'm in a totally different place than others because I wanted to do it for my mobility, and I don't need to get down to being,
Me too.
a size small.
I
And
do think it's different too when you're older. I
I
think
agree. I agree.
sometimes, we're not as worried. Maybe I can't generalize because I'm not everybody or
Right.
every woman in our 50s, but that we might not be as focused on appearance. There
Mhm.
might be some other things that are, moving us along.
Right. Right. So that gives a whole nother another realm of something to look at, and I think that's really important. And like I hadn't really thought about that. I've done some of the work unintentionally, but now it's like, I think I might have to go back and like reevaluate some
Well,
things
I'm
and
going to
see
give you
where
some
I'm at.
ideas about how to do that.
Awesome. Awesome.
So how you determine your core values, and I know people always ask me, well, like, what's the best way to do this, and you can, gosh, you can Google, Pinterest. I mean, there are all kinds of things, but
Mhm.
basically, I always recommend that you can look at a values list, you can use anything kind of as a jumping off point. And I recommend typically that folks pinpoint at least 10, values that,
Mhm.
they resonate with, and then go through those 10 and prioritize and identify your 5 top. Which 5 of the 10, do you are your top priorities? Because those are going to be your core values. But even better, there is actually a free quiz online that I really like, and I have my clients use. I've used it, and I'm going to give you guys the address, for that. And it's https, colon slash slash personal value VALU .es, and then right slash.
The same slash as the other.
Uh-huh. Do you want me
Okay.
to repeat it or?
Let me repeat it back to you because I'm going to
Okay,
put it on the little ticker down here.
great.
HTTPS colon backslash backslash personal value VALU .es backslash.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna put that
Is this the
across.
backslash or the forward slash? Oh, you can't see it on me. It goes to the right. The slash points to the right.
Let me see. I'm gonna put it up here. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Great.
Perfect. So I'm going to leave
So
that up there and people can take
wonderful.
that.
What you can expect when you go out, to this is that you could select all of the ones that are listed there, which are more than 10. But what I would recommend is that you're going to get better results because it's going to give you a summary that
Okay.
will include some information about your overall values. So you'll get more individualized results if you start and just pick 10 out of
Okay.
their main list. And so if you do that and pick the 10, then what it does is it goes through this process of measuring each. It'll give you like two bumped up together, and you have to pick, between the two. So you go through this kind of sorting process to then get to your core values, your 5 core values. And then
Okay.
it gives you a bit of a summary for each of those. It also will put a little statement about the strengths of somebody who focuses on that value, as well as the potential pitfalls or dangers.
Okay.
And then it has a section underneath when you get your 5 core values that says Ask AI. And you can there's one to where you can, it says, tell me more about my personality. And it's the only other thing that you can click that's for free. It has other options that you can pay for, but I love that because it gives you a more in-depth summary about your personality based on your core values.
I love that. I've done some similar things in the past for my mastermind group, and I've not
Yeah,
done this one. So they are kind of fun and interesting. So I highly recommend.
they are. It's very good, and it gives you a good place to then have those core values and think about your value driven intentions, right? Which are basically remember the way you want to show up in the world, the person that you want to be. These aren't goals like that you're going to have outcomes and check on the list. These are things, the way you're going to show up each day or the way that you want to show up each day. We're all a work in progress. I'm
Yeah.
definitely a work in
I'm
progress.
gonna pause for just a second.
Sure.
A couple people are here. Joyce, who I also know from TikTok, she's 54, not focused on appearance as much as I would have been in my 20s, more focused on being healthy. And I think that
Yeah,
I think that's right for you, Jackie, but it's definitely right for me as well.
it is.
And then Mandy, two of my favorite ladies. I just
Hey,
love
Miss
her.
Mandy. I do too.
And then Joyce, I put that link up there. Is that what you were talking about for the say that again? I think it is. So I think that we're all caught up now. So
Great. Well, when you clearly define, your core values, and in that process, your value driven intentions and then your intention driven goals, they're all connected, right?
mhm.
And so when you do that, basically it simplifies your decision making process because then all your decision making on a day to day is you're mindful and intentional about how it relates to you and the life you want, right? As
Yep.
opposed to just kind of being pulled along on the tidal wave of where life takes you.
Mhm.
And that's why I love your choose word, because your choose word is a measure of trying to be intentional each day. This would even impact your choose words of the day because then you could be more mindful that they be attached to your values and your core values and your intentions.
I
So
love that.
even more that would help you be more directive
Mhm.
in terms of the life that you want. And basically, this helps to just create an environment, right, that allows for you to be able to flourish, to grow, and to be your most well self.
Mhm.
And so, like I said, a lot of the uncomfortability that we experience, whether it be in relationships or in the workplace, really anything, I've found over the years, can be tracked back to just there being an incongruence with core values. Even when people don't necessarily recognize that that's the issue or that something was even their core value, they may not have thought about it in that way. When I worked for the Department of Mental Health, one of the things that I would do with teams, with staff teams, is we would actually do a workplace values assessment and then a personal values assessment. And then we would take a look at how those match up or don't match up. And so
That
it
is
can be
fascinating.
really helpful. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about too is when we talk about being your most well self. And again, this is all just another component on this journey of self-discovery,
Mhm.
right? And so that we can live more intentionally and I just identify who we are, what we want, so that we can prioritize it, so that we can ask for it. When I do couples therapy, I'm always like, did you ask them? Did you tell them that that's what you wanted or that's what you know? They should just know. Well, how are they supposed to know? And if you don't know, you're definitely not going to be able to ask for it if you don't know what you need or want.
Correct.
And so, but wellness, one of the things I did want to mention is when we think about our overall well self, because sometimes people might think of values, not, how does that fit in with an overall wellness, journey?
Mhm.
But there are 8 dimensions of wellness, right? So it's not just the physical or emotional, that we might think. We've definitely got emotional and physical. We've got occupational, which is our work career. We've got social, which can include friends, family, community. We've got spiritual. We've got intellectual wellness. We've got environmental wellness, which is kind of an interesting one. It includes things like it could include things like recycling and how you contribute to the world. It could also include things like if it's important to you to volunteer or contribute to your community in some way. It could be just contributing podcast information, bringing information to people, right? That could be an important thing. And then we have financial wellness. So we've got these areas of wellness that I think sometimes people don't consider to be
Mhm.
wellness. And they're all happening at the same time.
Yeah.
These are co occurring dimensions of wellness. They are not really separate, right? We're dealing with all of them. And so, if any one of them really is neglected, over time, we're going to feel it. It's going to affect our overall health and well being and our quality of life.
Mhm. I never considered all those different ones. I did consider the fact that I never used to like really over communicate, and I expected my significant other, Jay, now, but in the past, just to know.
Yeah.
They should just know.
It's like, how are they supposed to know?
Right. Right.
And sometimes too, we measure other people by how we approach life, right?
Mhm.
Through our lens. And if we are if we have a very kind of caregiving nature, or we're trying to read people and anticipate, if we've done that, which sometimes can be a trauma response
Mhm.
for safety. But if we're doing that to where we know all the things because we're hypervigilant about it,
Mhm.
and so which may or may not be a good thing, but the other person, that's not their approach to the world, how would they know?
Right. Right.
You know, and their approach is not necessarily wrong, but their go-to in their brain, their go-to thoughts, feelings,
Mhm.
actions, that's not been their go-to. So
Right.
it's not going to be their automatic, where it may be your automatic pilot. And you're like thinking,
Mhm.
well, they need to reciprocate here.
It's everyone's different, and I try now to really focus on that. Like I was telling you earlier with all the going out into the wild, be like, okay, they probably had something go on today
Yep.
that didn't involve me, and I just kind of took the brunt of it. So,
Well, and that's one of the things with cognitive behavioral therapy that we look at is catching those automatic thoughts, their automatic negative thoughts, also referred to as ants because they're pesky ants.
mhm.
But to catch them and to challenge them,
Mhm.
is this true?
Yeah.
What's the evidence? Could there be anything else going on other than they're trying to disrespect me?
Mhm.
you know um could they be having a bad day?
Mhm.
Could they be new? And even if they are, let's say they are intentionally being disrespectful, you know um is that something that you want to give any energy to? Because if
Correct.
you have an emotional reaction, then you're using some of your very limited, I always use a water bottle, We have, this much energy in a day. Are you going to give this to a stranger that you don't have any care about really?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you going to save it for other people in your life and the things that you need? Because then if you're wondering why you're even more cranky at the end of the day or not feeling well, is that you're trying to then get all the things you need to get done
Mm-hmm.
with half your energy,
Right.
and so which is not possible. And then you tap into the stores for the next day and
Mm-hmm.
then you're just behind, the curve. So then you can decide if you catch the thought,
Mm-hmm.
look at evidence and decide, do I want to spend my energy on this?
Mm-hmm.
Also you can decide with value related, how do I want to respond that is in the way I want to show myself to the world?
Mm-hmm.
Am I being congruent with my values, or am I letting somebody make me act, against my core value, against the way I want to show up and be in the world?
Yeah. And I love that because when I responded at the end with the one person, I'm like, oh, Tanya, don't do that. Not that it was inappropriate or mean or whatever, but
Right.
it's not how I worked on living my life. And when I do stuff like that, if my husband was here, he's like, you need to do that choose thing.
Well, and remember too, though, because you want to give yourself a little grace. And I always tell my
Mm-hmm.
clients, if you're able to catch your thoughts, challenge them, and so you can strategically act instead of emotionally react, 3 out of 5 times you're winning.
Yes.
Because when we don't feel good, when we're tired,
Mm-hmm.
the thoughts are harder to catch and challenge. And remember too that these are our go-tos, our automatic pilot, and they can really get by us and go really
Mm-hmm.
fast to the point too where we're just like, I can't believe I just said that, or I did that, or whatever.
Right.
So changing that, we look for in cognitive therapy, we work towards having a cognitive shift, which is basically a change in neural pathways. And if you're a science nerd like me, it's super cool. You can see it on a brain scan when a neural pathway
Ooh.
changes. I know, it's awesome. Um, but it takes a lot of intentional effort and practice,
Mm-hmm.
confronting a lot of the same go-to thoughts over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
before you can make that shift.
I had never considered any of this stuff until a few years ago. And then it's like, wow, we are all very complicated beings. And no wonder that
Yeah.
sometimes people just don't click or whatever. And then it has been for me in our podcast every week, the word intention comes up every single week.
Yeah.
Being intentional, acting with intention, and things like that. So it's all just really, really great and interesting stuff. And work. We have to
It
work.
is. Unfortunately, our brains, they automatically, so if we adopted and carried, let's say, a core belief, maybe when we were kids, we, determined or looked at, the way people acted towards us, and we gave it meaning that we're not good enough. And so then we adopt that as a core belief. And so that's our lens that we look and interpret everything. And unfortunately, our brain, and that was kind of my post this morning, my video,
Mhm.
our brain actually seeks out to prove that inaccurate belief is true. So if somebody is talking to somebody else and not us, we'll go, see, you
Mhm.
know, um, and so we have to intentionally, because our brain won't do it, we have to intentionally challenge our thoughts, catch them, challenge them so that we can strategically act instead of emotionally react.
Yes.
And so it is a lot of work and effort, but it is so worth it because you'll
Mhm.
find that your mood levels, will be, better. Your
Yeah.
stress levels will be better because you're not letting yourself expend so much energy, on things that, really are not congruent with your values or your intention or anything that's going
Mhm.
to benefit you. Because sometimes we could lose our stuffing with someone, who did us wrong. And it could be somebody that, we have a relationship with. But if we know that they have never, if the evidence is, have they ever listened to what we've said? Have they ever tried to stretch and make changes? And the answer is no. Then
Mhm.
do we want to expend a lot of emotional energy on that? Is it
Right.
worth it?
Right. I wish that that's something I would have known a long time ago with family
Right.
members who are now since gone, because it would have probably had me deal with things a little bit differently. But the good thing is that now I am knowing I'm working on some of this stuff, and I'm coming up with different answers and living a happier life. So it really does work. And you don't have to master it all at once either. I think it'd be impossible to master it all
Well,
at once. There's a
we
lot.
no, there's well, first of all, I don't think, we're all
Hmm.
hopefully we're always growing and leveling up because we're always processing and taking in new information,
Hmm.
both about learning about ourselves, what we believe, what we prioritize, as well as just the world, giving us new experiences and new people to negotiate,
Hmm.
with. So because we're getting constantly new information across our lives, I would be hoping that we would continue to practice and level up, you know.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, any other tidbits you want to share with us, or that was already such good, amazing stuff?
I would just tell you that if you think about the 8 dimensions of wellness, and focusing, and just remembering that wellness is not just emotional and physical. And honestly, if you're not attending to the others, that can
Mhm.
definitely impact your emotional and physical, which I think is sometimes why we think that's what wellness, is just solely included,
Right.
it's included in wellness. But just that a whole wellness journey, in any of those areas and all of those areas is a journey of self discovery.
Mhm.
And, if we, I love the quote that, there's no such thing as failure. You either win or you learn.
Yes, I love that too. I absolutely love that. I think a lot of people, and I used to be one of them, it's just so hard on themselves that, and the way you talk to yourself matters, really does.
It absolutely does. And we call it the con man.
Uh-huh.
And so, and I always tell my clients, I'm not thinking you're hearing voices. The con man is us, but we call that negative self-talk, those automatic negative thoughts, the con man, because we can be so slick in
Mhm.
convincing ourselves of things that aren't accurate,
Mhm.
and we can just let it go, let those thoughts run away with us, emotionally react, and then for something that we might find out later, it was not even true, and so, but that con man is slick. It makes us believe all kinds of stuff.
Mhm. I have, in the last couple of years, have really focused on surrounding myself with positive, like-minded people, and also people who don't tell me what I want to hear.
Right.
They will challenge me, and my friend Becky and I will tell each other, "Do not talk about my friend like that."
Love
And
that.
that's our cue to be like, "Okay."
I tell clients all the time, whether they're youth or grown-ups,
Mhm.
it's like, would you say that to a friend?
Mhm.
And they're like, well, no. And then I'm like, why are you telling yourself that then?
Right.
If that doesn't make sense to a friend, what would you tell the friend about this situation?
Mhm.
Well, that mistakes happen and it's okay. And it's like, but yet you're holding yourself to a whole different level of unrealistic accountability.
Mhm. Yep.
And so,
It's amazing. Thank you, Jackie, for spending
thank
some time with us today.
you.
I appreciate it so much, and it's always great to actually get to converse with you instead of just TikTok videos. Those are great
Right.
too, but to
No, I
actually have a
enjoyed it.
conversation.
Well, I enjoyed it. And I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna put you in the back room for just a second, and I
Okay.
will be right back. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you're wanting to watch the replay, it will be sorry. It will be available. I'm not going to get rid of it at all. So, and let me know if you have any questions or if there's any other topics that you want to see as well. I do have a lot of friends with a lot of different skills, and I'm happy to ask them to come on and have a conversation with me. So, have a wonderful day.